Your own understanding, truth under Babylon's empiricism. What up? I just gotta chime in here with my own opinion, my own humble opinions on what we have going here currently. So, I'm just going to say, I am not an expert. I am not a wizard. I am not a foreseer. I am me. Now, whatever comes along with my aptitude on life and learning and just experience, whatever comes along with that, is just a byproduct of me being me. Now, I understand everybody right now is up in arms, government locking down, a lot of different information that makes no sense, a lot of things that are being pushed and promoted are inconsistent and make no sense. So this is the reason why you have resistance. This is the reason why you have pockets of disbelief and disregard when it comes to what we have going on right now with this virus and everything. I just want to say, enter at your own risk, meaning if you want to come outside and enjoy the naturalness that life provides, that's your right, that's your decision. If you want to hunker down and do as they say and stay in the house and don't get all the benefits of the elements of the environment, the sun, the air, wind and rain, if you want to avoid all that, that's your choice also. Because you're not going to get the truth from them. You can only find what makes sense within you. So this whole scenario reminds me of 9/11, when we had these terrorist attacks, so-called terrorist attacks, and people began to get really prideful for their country and start to adorn flags on their cars and things like that. The American flag, showing pride, da 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 da. But we're all coming together now. We're Americans. Okay. And as the years went on, as the minutes ticked away, turned into days and weeks and months, and information starts to reveal itself, it seems that we got all patriotic and really sensitive when it comes to the subject of America around that time. All for us to find out that the things that our government was telling us about 9/11 were full of shit and nonsensical. It made no sense. So it left everyone most of us who basically were all patriotic and ready to go in for America, left us without any wind in our sails. Like, damn, this what we do? Yeah, it's what we do. So when I see people walking around with rubber gloves and masks and all types of shit, it reminds me of that very scenario. Even I had a flag on my car back in 2001 when 9/11 happened. Fuck that, we America. Looking out for anthrax and waiting for that bomb to be dropped or whatever the case may be. I did all that. At the same time, I had an understanding too about a lot of the propaganda machine that's hard at work, trying to convince human beings that they ain't shit. I fell for it too. So I'm looking at people trying to self-quarantine. I'm looking at people in their cars with masks and gloves and all this other stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, these motherfuckers need to have Geiger counters and lead vests, because that's what the reality of it is. And I actually kind of do recommend staying in the house for a good amount of the day, because the next phase of communications is going to slowly kill you. I mentioned the 5-generation network in a couple of my videos before, other times, warning about this, and here we are. So when you're talking about sicknesses and things that, you know, are related to CV, it really reminds me of radiation sickness or radiation poisoning. Every time I hear them talk about getting tested, I say to myself, are you having radiation poisoning testings? Because if you're testing only because someone has a cough, what are you really testing for? To see if they have this strain of flu or strain of contagion, I would say. They're describing this virus as if someone took AIDS and put wings on it and just let it fly about, play with the people, get them sick. It makes no sense at all. No sense. What does make sense is radiation poisoning, and everybody having it in some level. It is a plan to me. It sounds like a plan, part of the agenda. The next generation of communications demands a blanket of radiation, as thick as thieves. Now, it's going to cause illness. If you have an impaired immune system, it's going to get you sick. If you have something, a pre-existing condition, it's going to get you sick. If you have no pre-existing condition, it's going to get you sick. You have to get used to the level of radiation that's going to be in the environment. That network has a system, a power grid, and because of the bandwidth of information, because of the level of radiation and energy that's needed to provide us this network, it's going to pulse once, maybe twice a day. There'll be certain areas where radiation is going to spike. So I recommend you get a fucking Geiger counter and some sort of radiation treatment, and in your area, just watch it like the stock market. When that thing get the clicking, it's spiking, get your ass out of there. Go somewhere else. Or go in the house. Because at this point, the only protection you have against radiation is to self-quarantine. Or you're just going to get little doses of it, you know, as you travel around throughout the cities or different areas where you live at. You're going to feel lethargic. You're going to maybe get a little, feel like you have vertigo. You might not be able to make decisions completely like you used to. For some reason, you feel clouded. You start one thing, can't finish it, and go start on another, can't finish it. It's just signals being bounced off of you that is messing with your biochemistry, that disallows the proper function. So I'm not saying don't listen to what they're saying. I'm saying absolutely listen to what they're saying. But understand, there is obviously different levels in another area of intelligence when it comes to what they're saying to you. I once again, I'm gonna say it for the last time. I recommend getting a Geiger counter while they're very cheap right now, and protect yourself in that way. Because this network has to happen. They can't afford protests. They can't afford, the health department and things giving them shit about this network. It has to go up. Automation has to happen. They have to augment your reality, and they have to keep your will at bay. And that's what it is. That's what my opinion expresses. You don't have to listen to me. I'm just another voice out here in the crowd of confusion. The choir of Klamath music, that's where we are. I'm just one voice in that. So, like I said, we are where we are. We've been here before. There's a lot of information that you can be privy to and help relax your mind and your lifestyle. They're talking about giving out funding for people who lost their jobs, because it seems like they're not only coming after your free will, but it seems like they're also attacking certain industries with inconsistent practices behind that also. If the idea is not to congregate, not to have more than a lot of people, not have a lot of people in a certain area and things like that. Obviously, restaurants, hospitality industry calls for gatherings and shit like that. So, in a case like this, when the narrative is to not have those kind of scenarios going on, then restaurants is something that you do want to close. However, if this is a real scenario, then you have to be consistent with your assertions. You can't just pick certain industries because of one reason or the other. Maybe, I don't know, is it because the service industry, the hospitality industry doesn't generate enough tax revenue for the government? So it's like fat, you can just trim off, expendable. So that's just one aspect to look at. But what you have to look at, so now you have car manufacturers kind of shutting down. I heard a few slowed their practices down. So you have warehouses and, like I said, manufacturing all over the country that calls for these things. I'm surprised Nike stepped up and said, "Oh, well, we had to stop our sweatshops." I haven't heard anything like that, but this seems very inconsistent at best. So that is actually what is causing some of the disbelief and disregard, and just not taking seriously of the popular narrative about this virus. With me, Geiger counter, and staying obviously open, and staying in an understanding kind of mind state when it comes to dealing with propaganda that is inconsistent and makes no sense. This is where we are as people. There's a lot more I want to say. I'm not going to get into that right now because of my attention span, your attention span, and obviously just because of the conditions that we are in. Probably as of the last quarter of 2019 is, I believe, when this network actually started to be more than 70% ready for all platforms to hop on. And at that point, you're going to get sick. It's going to take some time for your immune system to get used to the radiation, and a lot of other things are going to come as a result of what we have, this pandemic. A lot of things that you're going to normally be forced to do, you're actually going to beg for. And there's a contingency if you don't beg, which is what you've been breathing in for the past 35 to 40 years that they've been dropping on you. And all those different metals, which I'm not going to mention, are now part of you. And once Dr. Dre gets inside the studio, starts hitting them buttons and sending them radio frequencies out with that network. It'll be 1,000 times more efficient than what we have right now. And you will not be able to trust anything you are thinking or even seeing at that point. So good luck.